Ever since childhood, you've been taught to listen to those that came before you on how to live your life. When you're a baby, you need parents or a guardian to care for you to show you how to live in the world. Then you go into school and you have coaches and teachers and your parents and guardians and society, social media, starting to tell you more and more the right ways to live. Because there's endless information, it's easy to lose sight of our own voice, desires, and our own wants and needs. So what I want to talk about a little bit today on the video is these three internal voices that I think we all have running. Two of them get a lot of airtime, and the third is actually the one that we need to be giving more space to. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. To be honest, I'm totally making this up based on my own experience. There might be science out there on what I'm talking about, but I want to be real with you that these are just ideas that I think are functional and useful and that I've learned through journaling. So the first of the three voices I want to explore here is our inner child. The inner child's been getting a lot more airtime the past decade or so. A lot of us have been trying to get back in touch with our inner child, whether it's exploring music that you loved when you were a kid or a teenager, or getting back into artistic endeavors or sports that you loved when you were a kid. I've noticed a trend with dudes in my life who are picking up video games again because it's something they loved as a kid, and society has kind of made them feel bad about it as an adult, but now they're kind of like, screw you, I'm going to play video games because it's fun. That's an inner child in its healthy form. But I want to mention something about the inner child that I don't think gets much airtime. Inner child work, it's all based around positive things of being an inner child, which are fully there. But what I want to acknowledge is the darker sides of childishness as an adult. Getting in touch with your inner child is so important to live a happy life. The world can just beat the joy, the naive spirit, the spirit of awe and wonder in the amazing world we live in, and how to have fun in the world like that. The beauty of getting in touch with your inner child is that all those amazing feelings of being human start to emerge. However, I think our inner child, or at least my inner child, is also the voice that holds me back from the difficulties that will actually maybe take me to the next level of my life as a adult man. Putting the inner child in the correct space as a man in my 30s is really important. The voice of the inner child will not always be correct. I have ADHD. Anyone with ADHD will tell you that boredom feels like physical pain. As somebody with ADHD who's chased my dreams my whole life pretty relentlessly, I think I've lived a lot of my life from my inner child, and I've been really happy because of it. However, I do think my inner child holds me back. A lot of that naive spirit and desire for fun and adventure all the time have held me back from getting to the next level of my life. Because as a child, you just want things to feel fun, good, adventurous, all those good feelings. But dealing with hard feelings or dealing with discipline or overcoming obstacles, they're a lot tougher when you're a child than it is when you're a disciplined, grown, mature adult. So I think I want to put the inner child here, both as an amazing voice of who you are, but I do think maybe it's been mischaracterized as the main voice to be listening to. A lot of times your inner child might be wanting the path of least resistance, and you might actually have to deny or reject lovingly, compassionately, what your inner child is telling you to do. Maybe a dumb example of this is if we all were to just listen to our inner child all the time, we would just eat whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. That would have serious ramifications for our health long term as an older person. As a little kid, you can get away with eating whatever you want. The consequences are pretty low. However, as an adult now, living in a 30, 40, 50-year-old body, if you only listen to your inner child and eat whatever you want, that's going to have massive negative ramifications on your health in that stage of your life. So sometimes your inner child is wrong. However, it is vital to remain in touch with this voice, to let this voice speak into your life, or else you're never going to have any fun and life is going to be a massive bummer. So make sure to stay in touch with your inner child. Moving into the second voice that gets a ton of airtime. If we're talking about inner child over here, this is the other side of the spectrum, which is our inner critic. The inner critic can be a massive bummer. I just ran the New York City Marathon. I trained for a long time for this race. I worked my butt off for a long time. I had to raise money. I ran for a charity. I did all this work, spent so much of my life training. And about halfway through the race, I was like cloud nine. My pace was awesome. It felt great. Everything was going awesome. And then around mile 15 or 16, right at the Queensboro Bridge, I felt something tweak in my knee. The Queensboro Bridge section of the run is a hellscape. All the crowd is gone and you're just going straight uphill forever, it felt like. I just felt this screaming pain in my left knee as I was running. And then you get over the bridge and have this massive stretch on First Avenue that seems to go forever, all the way up to the Bronx. The pain in my leg was so intense that it forced me to slow down my pace dramatically. I had this whole conversation with myself. I am not going to get even close to the time I wanted on this race. And I feel like a piece of shit. I am a massive failure. Why didn't I stretch better? Why didn't I train harder? Why didn't I do enough to where I could avoid this stupid injury that now it's slowing me down? I did end up finishing. My time was absolutely horrendous compared to what I was training for. This was like nearly 2 weeks ago, and I'm still hurting, by the way. Ever since I finished this race, my inner critic has been screaming. I didn't do enough. I didn't train hard enough. I didn't prepare for the hills. I didn't take care of my knee. My diet wasn't right. Every possible reason why I failed at this race has been just screaming at me the whole time. Truthfully, when I objectively look at it as a man in his 30s who just ran his first marathon ever on a really hard course with an injury, I'm proud of how I did. Am I satisfied with the result? No. Can I do better another time? Absolutely. The inner critic, if not tamed, will make you feel horrible. Even when you succeed, the inner critic will find things that are still wrong with it. However, I think it's important to say that the same way the inner child has a shadow side, the inner critic has an important positive side to it as well. The inner critic is just trying to keep you safe. The inner critic is just scanning the world and yourself for threats, and it barks at you because it's trying to protect you. So are there things I could learn from what I did wrong for this race for a future race? Absolutely. That's the good side of an inner critic, is the ability to honestly observe yourself and change based on better information as it comes. And that's how we grow. That's how we get better. That's how I know I'll be able to train differently for another race one day, because I did that one and my inner critic is telling me you can do it better in these ways. As you can imagine, if I only listen to my inner critic about my race, I'd be miserable. So it's good to have these two voices, my inner child and my inner critic. My inner child was psyched. Like, dude, you just ran through the city that you love and you finished a really hard feat. Like, that's so sick. People were cheering for you. Your family was there. My inner child was hyped on it. And combining these two voices and letting them dialogue about the experience a little bit more makes the experience a lot better. Instead of just them in isolation from each other, having them dialogue is the key. The inner critic is not always wrong. In fact, it is a voice that provides a lot of value for our lives if we're able to listen to it correctly. So now I want to talk about the last voice. Your inner child and your inner critic are very loud. The inner guide is quiet. I'll say if your inner guide has one massive fault, it's that it will never scream for attention. Your inner guide will always be quiet, waiting for its turn, and it will speak when enough silence between all the other voices comes. You have to give it silence in order to hear it. And that's why I think journaling is such a powerful tool, because journaling essentially is clearing out the noise of all these other voices and giving your inner guide enough space to speak. So who is your inner guide? If you have your inner child, you have your inner critic, who's your inner guide? I would say your inner guide is like your internal Dumbledore or your internal Yoda. If you look at some of the greatest stories ever, there's always a hero in the story. But then in all these stories, there's always a guide that helps that hero overcome their obstacle to solve the problem of the story. In Harry Potter, Harry can't achieve what he needs to do without the guidance of Dumbledore, teaching him everything he needs to do and partnering with him on the ways he needs to do it. Luke Skywalker with Yoda, Frodo, Gandalf. The list is endless. This always happens. And if you're more interested in this idea, please read the book Hero on a Mission from Donald Miller. I don't hear enough people talk about this book. To me, it might be the best self-help book. If I were to only have one self-help book the rest of my life, this one might be it. So highly recommend it. It's all about treating your life as a story worth reading, watching, experiencing. Back to your inner guide. You could swap out inner guide for wisdom. This is the voice that can see around corners in your life to see, like, well, if I do that, then that might happen. And truthfully, I think your inner guide is listening to your inner child and your inner critic, gathering information from these two really loud voices that's sitting quietly while these two voices are just kind of arguing all the time. It's gathering information, gathering information, gathering information. Then it's able to step in with wisdom and say, in this instance, let's lean more toward your inner child and go that direction. But in this instance, Inner Critic has a great point here. Let's fix that and go that way. I think your inner guide is what you truly want and think. Your inner guide contains all the wisdom of the life and experience and everything you've gone through in your world. And it allows you to make decisions based on what you truly want, think, believe, and want life to look like. It's the best voice to gather all the information of the external world and connecting that truthfully with your internal world to get you to the place you actually want to be, to help you make the hard choices, but ultimately the choices that are going to help you be happy in your life. My inner guide is the voice telling me, hey, great job completing the race, even though you were hurt. But we can train differently next time too, right? Both things are true. Your inner guide is able to see every side of the story and then come to the right conclusion and lead me into the next stage of my life at the most fulfilled, happy, highest level of who I can be. The only voice that's going to get me there is my inner guide. How do we get in touch with our inner guide? Through journaling. Journaling is the best way to hear yourself speak clearly. Why? Because journaling gets you out of your head and into something external, which is paper. When you're able to see your thoughts on paper, you're able to think more objectively about them. You're able to see what your inner child is saying here, hear your inner critic, and you're able to take all that information. And when it's quiet enough, when it's still enough, your inner guide can finally speak. When you're able to hear and follow your inner guide into the next stage of your life, the next day of your life, the next minute of your life, you will feel more like yourself. You will feel better. I'm fully convinced of this. So if you're wrestling with an important decision, I would highly suggest sitting with your journal and trying to get in touch with your inner guide. Give it some stillness, give it some time to think, to speak, and I'm pretty sure you will start to see interesting answers begin to emerge. Thank you so much for watching. Please sign up for my newsletter. You can get that in the description below. I have something really fun launching as my newsletter, and I am really excited about it. It's a tool I've been using, and the whole thing is around helping you build a journaling habit that you're happy with. That's simple, easy to do. So please sign up for that. Appreciate you all watching. And until next time, keep journaling and thinking clearly.